It is Phumlani M. Majosi. I am in Prague, in the Czech Republic. Very good sunshine coming through my window at my hotel this afternoon. Very sad news on the passing of South Africa's former finance minister, Mr. Tito Mboweni. Tito Mboweni I was a fan of his. I thought he was a one of the good guys, um, one of the guys who were very much intelligent in the ANC. Now, that is not to say there were things I could not disagree him on. There were actually on the matters of public policy, but in large part, Mr. Mboweni was one of the very good guys, a very nice person. At one point, he did follow me on Twitter or X, as it is called now, and he given my critique of the ANC. I really I liked that he could, follow me, unlike people like Fikile Mbalula, the current general secretary of the ANC, who blocked me on X. But Mr. Mboweni, he followed me and at some point tweeted some of my, or retweeted or posted some of my stuff on his account. So he really was a good man, a very nice person, very much one of the people who really was instrumental in the founding of a democratic South Africa, no doubt about that. He was there when the negotiations were taking place at the CODESA. He was there. He was part of those people who were shaping the future of South Africa. And as I write in my book, Lessons from Past Heroes, I do acknowledge those people. I do write about CODESA, that they were the most critical element of the founding of our country. We managed to be where we are today because, of the many very big decisions that were made then. And there was a lot of compromise from various groups that were involved. And I do commend those people, that they are the people to look up to when it comes to leadership. Because leadership is about sacrifice, compromise, especially if you want to build a one society that has been divided for for centuries, and that was the challenge. The leaders in early our leaders in early 1990s were facing. They were coming together to form a state of people who had been divided for centuries. And, I salute them. I have huge respect for those people, that they could come together and attempt to form a democratic country. Now, it could have been worse. I must say that we started quite well, and we are thankful to them. We should be thankful to them, right? Because we managed to build foundations of a young democracy, of a nation that wants to succeed in the future. We managed to put together institutions that are key for democratic progress. So we must be thankful to those people. Tito Mboweni is one of these. Tito Mboweni is one of these people. He was in the first democratic administration under Nelson Mandela. He was the labor minister. Of course, during his time, a lot of regulations and legislations came through, and some people have complained about that. They've complained about some of the legislation and policies that came through, labor reform policies that came through it during his time as labor minister under Nelson Mandela. there will, when it comes to policy making, there will always be things that we are not happy with, right? And in a democracy, it's okay. We must challenge those things, and also we must hold our leaders to account. So there's nothing wrong about being critical of Tito's record when he was labor minister in the country. He was largely a sensible guy. That, as I'm saying, not that he was perfect, not at all. He wasn't perfect, but he was largely a sensible guy. I really, the paper he released in 2019, if I'm not mistaken, 2019, which was basically a paper proposing on how we can revamp our economy, right? How we can address the issues of very dismal economic growth, high unemployment rates in the world. That was a good paper. That was a good proposal by Tito Mboweni back in 2019. Even the economist David Root, whom I interviewed in my recent episode of Econ Chat, he himself said that what was proposed in that paper to address the issues of competitiveness, dealing with SME growth, how to invest in SMEs, how do we deal, how do we form for exporting more? We need to export more as a nation. How do we create a productive economy? How do we bring in the private sector to play a critical role? So in that paper, I developed more respect for Mr. Mboweni, because I thought it was brave of him at a time. This is under Ramaphosa's administration, at a time to propose something like that, as to how do we address this very underperforming economy that underperforms sub-Saharan Africa, underperforms the rest of the emerging markets. And he really was, with the paper, he put out ideas that were good. I even wrote on News 24 back at the time, a column on News 24, where I said that he was the most rational minister in Ramaphosa's cabinet, because he really thought deeply about reform, right? And didn't want to do things that were just populist. Wanted to, wanted tough, tough decisions to be made in the economy. That is very important. Tough decisions have to be made in the economy. It's not easy to develop the economy. There has to be sacrifices. There has to be drive and determination from the leaders, but also from the citizens as well. Bosses have been preaching for a long time, to address our challenges. We need both the government, the state, and of course, private citizens. And the private citizens are the most important, because they are the ones who elect their government. The government they've elected represents them. So Mr. Mboweni, may he rest in peace. I thought he was one of the very sensible people, and he really had, a good vision for South Africa. He wanted a South Africa that is globally competitive, which is very, very important. That's how we need to see ourselves as a nation. We need to see ourselves as a nation that is operating in the hyper-competitive global system. And Mr. Mboweni, he had that in his mind. The question is now: could we see more leaders of his kind? Right? Could we have, in this 21st century, can we produce leaders who are smart, intelligent, who are well-read? Can we do that as a nation? Or we want to produce demagogues, right, who don't know how to really address the very basic fundamental things that we need to address as a nation. That's the challenge now, right? As we lose these leaders who fought for us, as these leaders are departing, leaving us behind, we should be asking ourselves as to what kind of leaders are we producing now? Can we produce the leaders of the same kind? Um, can we produce the leaders of Mr. Mboweni's kind, Mr. Mandela's kind, Mr. De Klerk kind? Um, can we do that? These are the big questions now we should be asking ourselves. 30 years into our democracy, leadership, who are we as a nation? And what leaders as a people are we electing into power? Because this is a democracy, right? So people are responsible for the formation of their governments, for the selection of their leaders. So that you can't go back and complain and say, well, they are letting us down and there's nothing we can do. Of course, there is something you can do. It's a democratic process. You need to hold your leaders to account. That is very, very important. So, Mr. Mboweni, I wish him, may he rest in peace. We really appreciate the work that he did as a South African, as a leader. I thought that in large part, or I think that in large part, he was a huge plus in South Africa's democracy. And of course, he was at one point the chair of the South African Reserve Bank. If there's one thing also to highlight here, and that is when you look at the ANC's governance, right, over the past 30 years, the ANC has messed up in many, many ways, right? Especially on fiscal policy. They've messed up in many, many ways. But when it comes to monetary policy, the ANC over the past 30 years has managed to be sensible, to be intelligent, to be rational, to make the right decisions when it comes to monetary policy. Our Reserve Bank, it remains very much largely insulated from the politics that we see in the country. We haven't had a leader who really hijacks, or politicians who hijack the Reserve Bank and turn it into a place that advances politics. The Reserve Bank has been largely independent and has been pursuing monetary policy that has been independent of politics, right? With no political leader really taking charge and changing the activities of the Reserve Bank for political purposes. There are many countries where that has happened, where political leaders they really temper, right, or get involved in the matters of central banks, and they impose influence in central banks. That does happen in many emerging nations in the world. Yet our country, we have managed to have an independent central bank. And I think that has been good for us and for our democracy. And under Tito Mboweni, it was exactly that. It was an independent central bank that really pursued monetary policy that was independent of politics, right? Monetary policy that was driven by data, right? Macroeconomic data, not some political agendas. The current chair of the Reserve Bank, he has been doing that as well, pursuing independence as an institution of monetary policy, and he has pushed back against, the comments by some politicians, and who basically, these are politicians who want to have an influence, organizations that want to have an influence in the decision making of the central bank. He has pushed back, and he has been clear that South Africa's socio-economic challenges they cannot be resolved by the central bank, the SARB, because they are more structural, right? We need to deal with the issues of education, taxation. We have very high income tax rates. We need to deal with the issues of skills development, infrastructure. fighting crime, reducing crime, the regulatory environment. Those are the things that we need to get right in South Africa, because that is where the problems are in the country. They don't have to do, they have to do almost nothing with monetary policy. The sun coming through straight at me here in Prague, in the Czech Republic. Remember to get yourself a copy of my book, Lessons from Past Heroes, at a bookstore near you. You can also order on amazon.co.za or take a lot. I will appreciate your support. One thing to mention before I close off from here, Prague, and that is the solutions or the approach that was published by Mr. Mboweni back in 2019, proposing the way forward on how to revamp South Africa's economy. That paper was really dismissed and opposed and rejected by COSATU and the South African Communist Party. Are you surprised by that? Don't be. You know very well that the SACP, the Communist Party, and COSATU, these are ANC's longtime affiliates. They are always opposed to anything that advances pro-market reform in the country, right? They are opposed to that. They are always opposed to it because they care about themselves and their workers. They don't want reform that will shake up SOEs, right? They don't want that. So it wasn't surprising that they rejected that paper by Mboweni. And when something is rejected, when a policy proposal is rejected by the likes of COSATU and the Communist Party of South Africa, you must know that you are doing a good job. You're on the right track. And keep up. Don't stand back. Keep up. So he is a loss to South Africa. I just hope that more leaders are going to come through, the leaders of his kind. My name is Phumlani Mmajozi from Prague in the Czech Republic. I'm on X at Phumlani Mmajozi. I'm on Facebook, Phumlani Mmajozi. That's a Facebook page. I am on LinkedIn, Phumlani Mmajozi. I am, where am I? Instagram at Phumlani Mmajozi. I do have a website, phumlanimmajozi.com. I'm on TikTok as well at Phumlani Mmajozi. Please do buy a copy for yourself of my book, Lessons from Past Heroes. We'll chat soon.